The WCCO team first told you about expensive, soundproof doors in a top state leader's office. Now there are allegations of unethical and unlawful behavior.
When Pat Kessler started asking questions, Attorney General Lori Swanson issued a press release but refused to sit down for an interview. She's fighting back today because a state watchdog just reopened an investigation into her office. In sworn testimony, lawyers are accusing Swanson of putting them on cases for her own political gain, and they haven't spoken out until now.
It was always political mode, yes.
Paul Civello was a Medicaid fraud attorney under both Attorneys General Mike Hatch and Lori Swanson. He says employees were pressured into working on high-profile cases intended only to bring publicity and political attention to the boss. But there's more to his charges than just politics.
The problem I found in the Medicaid fraud control unit was an attempt to deceive the Office of Inspector General.
Civello makes the claims in a sworn affidavit in which he describes misconduct by two successive Democratic attorneys general, the top law enforcement officers in the state. One case in particular, he says, a lawyer was hired under a different title in order to receive federal funding. Another attorney who still works in the AG's office writes in a memo that this amounted to fraud. Another case involved the giant pharmaceutical company GlaxoSmithKline. Civello and others worked for years on an antitrust case against the drug company when Hatch was running for governor.
This is a big industry. They're pretty arrogant, and they've got a lot of control over people.
4 years after Hatch filed the case with a lot of media attention, it was quietly settled. No penalties, no fines, and no publicity.
And we had worked hundreds and thousands of hours on this case. We had won at every step of the litigation. This case was worth a lot of money to the state, and it was essentially dumped.
Did that surprise you?
It's not surprising to me or to, I would think, people who worked in the Attorney General's office.
Why?
There has been, over the years, while I was there, a pattern of filing lawsuits, holding a press conference, and then quietly either settling the case or dumping the case.
But that's not what bothers Civello the most. He says Swanson deceived the federal government, using the Medicaid fraud unit to prosecute cases that helped her campaign for Attorney General.
As Minnesota's Solicitor General, she led Attorney General Hatch's fight.
Minnesota's nonpartisan Office of Investigations, the legislative auditor, did not find evidence to support Civello's claims. Neither did the federal government. But the auditor is now taking a second look, expanding his investigation to cover a longer period of time.
Because certainly if there are misrepresentations, we want to uncover that.
The new investigation comes at the request of Democratic State Representative Steve Simon and Republican Representative Tom Emmer.
Someone has made some very significant allegations of wrongdoing, illegal activity in that office. Those allegations need to be investigated. They need to be determined one way or the other. There needs to be a determination. Are they credible or are they without merit?
Now Swanson is hitting back hard. In an unusually blunt response to Civello's claims, Swanson calls him a bitter man. Part of a group of disgruntled former employees, she says, who wallow in despair.
It's a typical vicious attack that I've become accustomed to seeing from Lori Swanson and Mike Hatch.
Martin Carlson is another former employee, a lawyer who worked in the Attorney General's Consumer Enforcement Office. He describes an atmosphere of intimidation, where he says all employees were asked to work for the headlines.
Yeah, the adage was, once the publicity's over, the case is over.
Since Swanson took office, 68 attorneys have left their jobs with that office. That's about half the total number of attorneys working there. But Swanson's office says that's comparable to past attorneys general.